Kofi. The footballing titan Sir Alex Ferguson once said, "If you can't keep the ball, you won't score goals." True of football, true of economics. Africans in the diaspora are not good at keeping the black pounds they've earned within their communities. There are many parallels in America. In 2015, African American spending power was once worth a reported $1 trillion. If this was the GDP of a sovereign state, it would be the 16th largest economy in the world. But how much of that spending power is spent in their own communities? The Asian dollar circulates within the Asian community for a month, the Jewish dollar within the Jewish community for 20 days, and the white dollar lives and creates value in the white community for 17 days. But the African American dollar works in its community for a paltry 6 hours, says economic site Money Maven. The US website goes on to say that only 2 cents of the black earned dollar is spent within the black community in America. Whether apocryphal or not, the narrative paints a picture. Today, Your Voice asks, how do we recycle the black pound so it can effectively serve those who earned it? Most importantly, this is your show, your voice, your shout. So please do get in touch and have your say via the number shown on the screen below. Now, here in the studio to drill down into this particular issue, first of all, are insurance advisor Noah Laguda and Lydia Amour, author of the Black Pound Report, business coach and diversity consultant. A real pleasure to have you both join us. Let's dive straight in. Do you believe we can recycle the black pound?
Well, in one simple answer, yes, I believe we can recycle the black pound.
Will it be a long grind, or will it be something that we can win quickly?
Extremely long grind. It might take about 3 generations, but definitely we can do it.
Okay. 3 generations,
Wow.
Lydia. That's a big reach. Do you believe we can recycle the black pound?
Definitely, I believe we can, but there has to be some huge commitment and dedication from our community before we can definitely achieve that.
But 3 generations, though.
I hope it can be less than that.
We'll
I hope
see.
it can be less than that.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Okay. Well, I spoke to Dr. Carlton Brown earlier today about just how big the black pound is. Here's what he had to say. Carlton, thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Can you give us a sense of the size of the black market in the United Kingdom and its spending power, please?
Okay. Well, that's a fairly multifaceted question. I think there are 2 aspects to look at. There's one, the economic aspect with the consumer, and then there's the economic aspect with businesses. So if we look at the consumer to start with, there was a report done several years ago by the IPA, which indicated that the black and ethnic minority community have a purchasing power of circa 300 billion a year per annum. So that's the first thing. It's about the consumer spending.
Right.
If you augment that alongside the business community, that we're net contributors, black and ethnic minority businesses, to the tune of 25 billion contribution to GDP. Right. So what I'm saying, so if you look at the consumer and then you look at the businesses, we are, significant contributors to several hundreds of billions of pounds per year within spending power and purchasing power within the UK.
That's superb. Now, what, in your opinion, would it take to recycle this huge amount of money that black people in the United Kingdom have earned or contribute, to recycle that money back into the communities that earned that money?
Well, that's, I would like to say it was a simple answer to a question, but it's actually a complex solution. But there are things that you can do, I would argue, that would help facilitate that. And I think, one, I just touched on, I talked about businesses. And I think, if you're an owner of a business, That's really important. So you can invest in businesses. And so if I'm a consumer, can I identify and find a business that I could identify with and spend within that specific economy? So that's the first thing. Secondly, I would invest in property and having portfolio, because I think the other side of the coin is when you talk about wealth and wealth generation creation over time, investment in property always tends to go up significantly over a period of time. But then it becomes a legacy. You can leave it to others. And disproportionately, we've always had that adverse effect. We haven't had significant levels of ownership, specifically within the UK. So I think we need to change that. So investment, so when you get, if you have disposable income, look at investing in businesses, look at investing in property, look at also investing in education. So pay that additional sums to get a better education, because we know that having a good infrastructure, good education, and enables us to do have a better qualification, then it leads us to have access to better opportunities. So that's the key significant thing in terms of looking at investment. So if I was thinking about money in general terms, I would look at how can I utilize my resources in those areas.
Good. So in terms of actually spending, black consumers spending money on black businesses, what solutions would you see in that specific arena?
Well, I think, I mean, I'm not a fan of fads or fashion. I think if you're going to do something, do it systematically. I mean, if you think about things like,
you mean
nepotism,
in a sustained way over time? In
a sustainable way over time. If you think about it over, there's been cronyism, nepotism, and networking. Now, and all of those things are designed to help and support each other. We call that social capital. So what I'm saying here is, if you have the opportunity to support someone who maybe has not had the necessary opportunities as you have had, to invest in that business in order to elevate them so they can have a successful business, I think that's really important. So it's about a mindset shift. It's not about just saying, well, I'll do it for today or tomorrow. Have a sustainable attitude towards helping someone else who may be disproportionately have those challenges or inequalities as we see in society. So if you can go and buy something, whatever that is, within your community to help elevate your own community, I think that's really important.
Fantastic. Well, it seems to me that sustainability is a key word in the final part of your answer there. Carlton,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you.
Well, Noah, let me come to you first of all. 300 billion consumer spending power. That's not insignificant.
No.
That is serious money.
Very significant.
Okay. Now, he also said that I'm not a fan of fads or fashions.
Yeah.
And he's talking about sustainability.
Yes.
Is that your worry? And is that why you're saying that it's going to take us 3 long generations? We will all be dead and gone before that happens.
We will indeed.
Okay.
I mean, that is my worry. I mean, obviously I specialise in insurance, life insurance particularly.
Right.
A majority of my clientele are from the black community. And I've noticed a very sort of skeptical notion of investing money for the long-term gain, for their grandchildren and their children and the other sort of family that would actually benefit from such a service. It's almost we are looking at what we can consume for now. And that's the problem. We've got to really change the mindset and the narrative in terms of how we're spending our money and what we're spending it on. And I can obviously only really talk on the insurance aspect because that's where I specialize in. And I've seen a really, surprising reluctance of people wanting to actually invest money long term.
I understand. But insurance is a slow burn business. Kind of retail and so on it's a cash money business. Turnovers are high and they're much more rapid.
Yeah.
Now, Lydia, you did a report called The Black Pound, in which you spoke a lot about this 300 billion pounds that's available within the black community.
Yeah.
But you were asking mainstream businesses to target the black community. Do you think we now need to make a switch of focus?
I look at it 2 sides really, because I think about 20 odd years ago when I was in a shop and I just literally wanted to buy some makeup, and they said, look, we only stock normal colours here. You have to go to London to get the type of colours that you're looking for. And
what do you mean, up to the West End? And
up to the
like
West
that?
End,
Right.
yeah, to literally find the colours. And I just thought, wow, I also need to be able to walk into a shop and buy what I need. So that's why I work within the advertising industry as well, speaking to them, educating them on different multicultural audiences. But the Black Pound report for me had a double-edged sword. Number one, I really felt that it's important for people from African and Caribbean, Asian, multi-ethnic backgrounds to really, money talks, people listen to money, and I want them to understand they've got value and they've got worth. Because you can talk about money as long as you like, but if you can look in the mirror and you don't believe in yourself, and you don't understand your heritage, you don't understand your history, then you'll just keep repeating these ridiculous patterns of, like Noah said, not investing in the long term. But that's not for all of us, because I mean, the way that I was raised to, you know, about investment funds, buying property, just like in the interview it mentioned, obviously land, even better, you know, and he mentioned about education. That's really important as well.
Indeed.
To me, it's not that complicated. Sometimes we're in 2020, I can't believe we're still talking about it.
It's remarkable. I'm
Yeah.
going to come back and I'm going to reference Noah's exquisite suit over here. Now, we're going to take a short break now, but please join us again for part 2, where we'll be continuing the conversation. See you in a few minutes. And welcome back to Your Voice with me, Ted Kofi, and my guests, Noah Laguda and Lydia Amoa. Now, Noah, Lydia just made reference to the fact that there she was, she had her money,
Yeah.
she was looking for a particular kind of makeup, she couldn't find it and had to travel across town
Yes.
just for the possibility.
Yeah.
Black people spend a lot of money on clothes. You're immaculately dressed.
Thank you very much.
Now, why is it that black businesses don't sell these clothes, and that if you're looking for clothes like this, they will always be owned by somebody else? Why is it that black businesses generally don't control things like the cosmetic, the hair care, and the makeup businesses, on which we are known to spend? Tell me how much we spend on it. Do you remember?
It's 5.2 billion
5.2 billion.
for beauty.
Why is that going on?
In my opinion, not enough aggressive marketing is being done by ourselves within the community. I believe also there needs to be a lot more entrepreneurship, you know, sort of taught to our younger generation. And, you know, you mentioned a great point about, you know, us understanding our history and our culture. Who's teaching it to us?
Yeah.
Where are young people learning about our history and our culture and about things like this? So these sort of conversations are what we need and should have been having, you know, on a regular basis to change the mindset in order to sprout up more shops and more, you know,
Understood.
black businesses.
It begs two questions.
Yeah.
The second one is media, but I would say that, wouldn't I? I have an interest. But the first question is, before you set up an enterprise, you're going to need finance.
Of course.
Yeah.
And what is known, Lydia, is that British banks have not been good at supporting black-owned businesses. And yet, all the research indicates that on account of glass ceiling issues and other difficulties, black people have a greater propensity to want to go into business for themselves than other people. That's a conundrum and seems to kind of turn what you said on its head. What's the solution to this financial blockage?
Well, I was doing some research and I looked into venture capitalism, you know, venture capitalists, and 83% of venture capitalists are white, and 82% are university educated, which means there's only a few venture capitalists that will give funding to underrepresented, overlooked groups. So when it comes to getting funding from the bank and they're not prepared to give it to you, most entrepreneurs will look to a venture capitalist to invest in their business, correct? That is a great way to begin. So I did look at, if I'm allowed to mention someone today, I'll
Carry
read
on.
out, you know, it's Capital, Impact X Capital, and it's run by Eric, and he's one of the founding CEOs of it. And what he's doing is actually giving money to entrepreneurs, and not just giving them money, giving them advice and top tips. That's what we really need to survive. Like your point as well, ferocious marketing, we need to do that. Most brands, everywhere you go, they're in your subliminal mind because they're just there telling you, you need this product. And that's a big problem, you know, so that's what we need.
In support of what you're saying, let me give you a quote from the FT. There are no comprehensive figures on lending to black-owned businesses in the UK because banks do not ask for ethnic backgrounds on application forms.
That's rubbish.
But bankers acknowledge there is a problem with funding.
So they acknowledge there's a problem, but they haven't actually got any stats on it.
There we go. Now, if I can come to you again, Noah, about this question of aggressive marketing. To market, you need media. And is there a problem with black-owned media? There are very few. Very few broadcast channels. There are rather more radio channels, but their reach is quite limited. What do you have to say about that?
I believe probably the most effective type of marketing is word of mouth. And as a community, we need to support each other more, you know, and if we are struggling to get finance from banks and from venture capitalists, why don't we finance each other? Why don't we utilize, because we do have a lot of very successful black, you know, people in this country who can come to the aid of budding entrepreneurs and, you know, budding new business owners and of that nature. And also another problem we have as well is the credit of black people is known to not be the best. And so we have to ask the question, why is it that? You know, so there's a lot of other deep-seated issues.
Is it a question of education?
Education, exactly. It all comes down to knowledge.
Because
if you give finance to someone who doesn't have the knowledge of what to do with it, then guess what?
Yeah.
It's going to go down the drain.
Yeah, because, sorry.
Well, let's say, I mean, you mentioned education, as did Dr. Carlton Brown and everything else, but one of the most exciting programs to recycle the Black Pound was Black Pound Day.
Yeah, that was
Started 27th of June, 2020, by a rapper.
Yeah.
Okay, he's a member of So Solid Crew.
Yes,
now, that's practical. What do you think of Black Pound Day and initiatives of that nature?
I thought it was amazing, actually. I've spoken to
Did you take part?
I definitely took part, and I invested in a young lady that's running a podcast, and I thought, let me so invest in her. Yeah, and that was amazing. So that was really good. And not only that, it was just an amazing day. You're just watching everybody online, posting pictures of their receipts, going into business, and it was a great day. And it's carried on, and it's going to continue every month. It will be advertising this, and I've spoken to some people in business that said that actually they did really well, the best year they've ever had in their business. Can you imagine that?
Wow.
The best year.
Wow.
That's
amazing.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah, it really is.
That's social media.
Yeah. Yes.
That is absolutely a way of getting things right out there on fire.
Indeed.
Did you shop on Black Pound Day, and what did you buy?
Yeah, of course. I have a black-owned grocery shop sort of near where I live. So I always go in there to buy the things that I need in that sense, because I do obviously enjoy a lot of African food. So yeah, I'm always in support of that.
Yeah.
But essentially, it has to be more than just a day. You know, it has to be something that we make,
as he said, sustained.
A culture, not just a movement, but an actual culture that sustains itself.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why it will take time.
Okay, that's 3 generations, but to say. So we conducted a brief Instagram poll, and we asked the question: do you trust the banks to provide finance for black businesses? Well, the answer was 27% said yes,
Wow.
73% said no.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is that an indictment on our current perceptions and systems, or what?
I'm still just taking in that percentage. So are we saying that 73% are saying that they have no faith and trust in the banking system? Is that, if I understood that correctly?
Well, exactly. I mean, that's what they're
Wow.
saying, is that, and of course, I mean, if you think, if 73% of people think that it's not likely to happen,
Wow.
they probably won't try.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes.
If you believe that something is not available to you, you will give up. And this goes back to the point of education.
Yeah.
In the report, 52% said they wish they had better access and more access to financial knowledge.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's actually not just to our community, worldwide people, but worldwide people want access to more financial knowledge and expertise about investments, how to manage your finances, you know, forward thinking, not, you know, cash for today.
Yeah.
But we have to understand, why is there cash for today, the now culture within the black community especially?
Tell me.
Well, from my research says, because we again are looking at our reflection, that our point of history comes from slavery. Not for me. Not for me.
Right.
I don't look at myself in that way and think
Right.
my history stems from slavery, because you have to know your history to know that. I don't want to just say that we were kings and queens, but we were. Look at the minerals, look at the gold, you know, open heart surgery, sitting at the toilet seat you sit on was created by a black person, heart surgery, all of these things. So if you can take the time to just know your history, it will change who you are.
Education. Education.
So if we can kind of run this towards the end now, what needs to change? Is it the businesses, the marketing, the media, good products? Is it a matter of the location as well? Do you all live in fancy postcodes where there aren't any black shops, or what?
Yeah.
For me personally, I believe what needs to change is definitely our mindset, and develop more of a togetherness within our community, and not be afraid to go into a black grocery store or to a black-owned business to buy your products. I mean, we need more black Tesco's and more black Sainsbury's and more black retailers where we can buy our clothes and, you know, more of those things. But also we have to have the confidence to go in there and shop, you know, and feel really comfortable amongst ourselves as a community.
Yeah, I
agree.
agree.
And not feel so somewhat primitive in that sense, you know, but just accept everyone in the community and just support each other. I think that's a very big step going forward.
It's interesting, the
And
solutions
think more
you're
long
bringing
term.
up.
And think more long term.
The solutions you're bringing up aren't technical, they're not economic, they're not marketing.
all of these seem to go to mindset and cultural
mindset
solutions.
Definitely. And
you mentioned Fenty,
yes,
Lydia. If we can come back to that.
Yeah, the reason why I'm a woman, I do like my makeup, but I was just fascinated because Fenty, obviously by Rihanna, the artist, and in the first 18 months of business, £570 million, and to date the business is worth £3 billion.
My goodness.
Okay, so she's fronted it with Louis Vuitton. So at first we all felt it was Rihanna's business,
right.
but because she's the front face of it and she does actually, earn a dividend of it and so on because it's backed by Louis Vuitton. But it's just two people coming to business, and now
each bringing their cachet. She brings the front-facing end. Louis Vuitton brings the, marketing expertise, design, and so on and so forth.
Definitely. And then we have to remember Pat McGrath as well. She's a black makeup artist who does her own products. And then we've got to think about Charlotte Mentor. I've got to give her a shout out. A great hairdresser who's doing great things out there. There are so many great people, and we need to actually be advocates of each other.
I agree.
And allow others to lead. Others to lead, and not just be, the only black person in the village.
So how are we going to recycle the black pound in one sentence?
For me personally, buy more and more life insurance.
That's a plug. Lydia?
Shameless. Shameless, Noah.
But there is economic sense
there is economic sense. I would say, please.
But carry on.
Education is change your mindset and invest in yourself and in your own community.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Well, that's the end of part 2. Join us after the break when I'll be joined by Nana Evans and Demi Ario.
And welcome back. You're watching Your Voice with me, Ted Kofi, and my guests for this half are fashion designer Nana Evans and founder of Lendo, Demi Ario. Now, with the opinions of some of our younger viewers, this is My Voice from Angela, Emmanuel, and Esther on the Black Pound.
Entrepreneur and I'm a blogger, and what recycling the Black Pound means to me is first and foremost educating ourselves and creating multiple streams of income. I don't think it's enough to have a 9-to-5. I definitely don't even think it's enough to just have a business. We're not just here to be bosses, we're here to create opportunities for people within our communities and to give back. Remember, each one, teach one, reach one. I feel like it's important for you to buy from Black businesses. If you can invest in Black businesses, I think it's important to learn from people who are creating opportunities for people within our communities and definitely support those people. So I believe that generational wealth will be created this way and generational curses will be broken this way. I think it's important for us to educate ourselves in things like life insurance. Remember, when you leave your family with nothing, you leave them in debt. So I hope that every single one of you are encouraged. I hope that you're learning. I hope that you're growing. And I hope that you are investing back in your community.
Hi guys, my name is Emmanuel Jones. I'm a financial advisor specialising in insurance protection. So I want to talk to you guys about the importance of keeping wealth within the Black community and how we should circulate it as a people. They say knowledge is power. They say in order for us to go far, you can go far by yourself, but you can go even further as a people. And what we need to do is each one teach one and each one help one up to the next level. So I'm a firm believer that I can open a door. What I'm going to do, I'm going to kick open that door and see how many of my brothers and sisters I can bring through with me. And that's the mindset we need to adopt as a people. So yes, I have the knowledge when it comes to say insurances, and now it's my duty to make sure I pass on that baton to other people. So whether you are an expert in your field, whether you have knowledge in, make sure that you pass on that baton to as many people as possible. So what we need to do as a people again is elevate, educate, empower, demonstrate, showing by leadership, showing by what we know, that how we can educate and pass it on to those that we are our people. Because at the end of the day, as far as I'm concerned, no one else is going to help us. We have to help ourselves. Does that make sense? Yes.
Hi, I'm Andrea Dormer, Managing Financial Advisor, and what recycling the Black Pound means to me is creating wealth within our community, making sure that we spend as much as possible and support one another within the community, making sure that we're investing as well with each other, taking advice from each other, learning more, educating each other, especially the younger ones, so that they're able to change the stigma within the Black community and create more generational wealth within us.
So, Nana, do you believe that we can effectively recycle this huge amount of money that Black people earn in the United Kingdom?
Yes, definitely. It's possible. What it takes is actually a real re-education though, because we've all been indoctrinated under a white supremacist society. So Black people as well as white people are inherently racist. So we have to then elevate our minds so that we start spending with each other, have more trust in each other, and break the cycles that have gone before us.
From your experience with Lendo, do you believe that we will be able to recycle the Black Pound?
Definitely, and I think you're starting to see it happen. A lot of Black businesses now are becoming a lot more popular than before. You're seeing, from a culture perspective, people like Stormzy, people like Anthony Joshua, they're speaking about recycling the Black Pound, and people are following suit, not only in the Black community, but also in other communities. And I think one thing we need to remember as a community is that actually, despite the fact that we're the minority, we influence the majority. And I think that influence that we have allows us to recycle the Black Pound.
How do you think we influence the majority? Does that mean that we make products that the majority actually want to buy? Or is it because there's something about our lifestyles that they culturally appropriate? It doesn't matter as long as they're paying you money for it. Mm-hmm. How do we influence the majority?
It's everything and the above. If you think of style, music, a lot of our culture is actually sold back to us and taken from us as well. Mm-hmm. But not even just that. Actually, our minerals, what everything in Africa is fueling the West. So it's not just style, it's actually our minerals, it's what they take from Africa, it's the fact that you need our resources to even fund, to actually have technology to run. So our resources are actually funding the world, but we're not getting any of the money.
Okay. So do you think that Black Pound Day was just a gimmick that's going to be a big rage for a couple of months and then fizzle out?
Good question. No, I don't. And I think this time it's different, if that makes sense. I think, the fact that we had obviously the trauma with COVID, and then of course the death of George Floyd, bringing that together, I think you've seen a bit more than just people campaigning or a few people coming together. You've seen a real movement. You've seen not only the black community coming out, but you've seen other communities joining the black community and actually saying, something has to change. And I think, you're seeing it by the way a lot of the corporates are reacting. So you look at the likes of Netflix, who now, invested, I think it's 100 million into, black-owned, I think it's black-owned banks in America. You look at the likes of people like Goldman Sachs, who've over the past 3 months have invested over 750 million into into banks that support black communities. So I think you're seeing there's a big shift this time. So I think Black Pound Day is part of that shift, and I don't think it's going to stop. I think what may happen is it might become something that's normal, but that's what we want, right? We don't want it to be a thing. We want it to be normal.
Okay. So for this not just to be a performative spike, which was thought up by a music entertainer, how frequently should Black Pound Day run? Is this something that should be weekly, monthly, quarterly, half yearly? What?
No, it's not to be like Black History Month. This should be a lifestyle, it should be every day. But how I think of it is like fair trade. So the fair trade movement, when that came about, it was an initiative so that people were being paid fairly. That's how Black Pound spending should be seen. It should be a conscious choice that I have to put my equity into black businesses. It's owed to them because while I was building up my equity, they were fighting for equality. So it actually should be a conscious decision that everybody does, is I should be putting my money in black businesses whenever possible.
Okay. So on the last Black Business Day, the first one was on the 27th of June. Did you shop in a black-owned business, and what did you buy?
It's quite interesting actually. I didn't shop, I didn't buy products, but I paid for services from black-owned businesses. And I mean, the business I run, we support black-owned businesses. The majority of our customers, 97%, are black businesses. So for me, Black Pound Day was something I do all the time.
Right.
But the customers I have, for example, a lot of them sold out. A lot of them done really well. A lot of them got loads of exposure. So even though I was maybe buying services as opposed to products, I know that there was other people in the community that were buying products all around.
Of course, there are products, there are services. And one thing I noticed is that, of course, you're in the creative space where you work with fashion and so on and so forth. But there are lots of consultancies and PR agencies and influencers and bloggers and so on who are black. What do you think about supporting those businesses?
It's a conscious decision I have. So on Black Pound Day was my best selling day online in 13 years. Like sold out on lots of things. I'm still making and sending stuff out to customers that purchased from me on the 27th of June. It was that busy. But also on that day, I took 20% of what I had earned and I put that into courses that I purchased from people. I bought products from people just so that the pound is circulating around as well. It's that type of shopping I'm talking about. Consciously shopping and filling your house with goods that are produced by other black people.
Okay. We ran an Instagram poll on asking the question, how often do you think there should be a Black Pound Day? And the results were 45% think it should be happening weekly, 55% think it should be happening monthly. So this thing seems to have found a degree of traction. What would you say?
Definitely. I mean, it was something new, but it was something that we all know needed to happen, if that makes sense. I mean, we had customers, like one of our customers, The Great Feast, it was an online festival. They sold out of all their food. Another company we know quite well, Afrocentrics, they sold out of some of all of their products. So it's what we need, And hopefully it continues to happen regularly, and it becomes, like you said, it becomes more of a lifestyle thing rather than just in a day.
Can I ask you a question specifically? If clothes are designed using, say, African prints, for example, as I'm wearing, the money that's spent on the fabric, on the workmanship, on the design, the cut and everything will definitely wind up going up a supply chain which will benefit people of African or black origin. What stops creatives like you extending these chains or creating more of these chains and talking more about them?
Well, for me, I sell to everybody, and I don't subscribe to this idea of cultural appropriation being when a white person is wearing a print. That's not what cultural appropriation is. It's when you take somebody's culture and you reappropriate it and you miss out that link that it was actually African, and you resell it. That's cultural appropriation. Wearing something that a maker has made who is of African origin is, again, it's what should be. It's commerce. You know, it's like business. Buying. It's just business. So in a way, it's like we harm ourselves when somebody's in a print and you're like, oh, you're a cultural appropriator. Again, it's a part of the same system. Because we're taught under the system, we do things to harm ourselves as well. So it's like, actually, everybody should be free to wear from us and credit us and spend money with us. It shouldn't be that because Stella McCartney makes a dress out of Ankara, that then white people feel it's okay. Really, it should be that I'm seeking to buy from an African maker because I know that I'm feeding another family. I'm actually building their business. That's how businesses grow.
We'll come back to the issues of mindset after this. That's the end of part 3. Do join us after the break when we'll be wrapping up the discussion on how we can recycle the black pound right here on Your Voice.
And welcome back. You're watching Your Voice with me, Ted Kofi, and my guests, Nana Evans and Demi Ario. Lady and gentlemen, let me ask you this. I'll remind you first of these statistics. This is what I call black capital flight. The Asian dollar circulates within the Asian community apparently for a month. The Jewish dollar within the Jewish community for 20 days. The white dollar within the white community for 17 days. The black dollar circulates within the black community for a paltry 6 hours. That's from Money Maven, an American finance site. Do you believe we can learn to recycle the black pound, and how long will it take?
Yeah, definitely. I'm really optimistic. I feel like within my lifetime this could take place. I just think it's a concerted effort for maybe 5 years. So in the next kind of decade, so let's say 2030, I think we're going to see a real change.
I know she's talking consumer services, consumer products, because that's the field she's in. You're in the area of business, and so you're looking at services. Do you think we can create this mindset of keeping that pound in our community for longer than a few hours?
No, definitely. And I think, again, you're seeing it. I think, you're seeing loads of smaller communities coming together, or these micro communities, shall I say, and investing in one another. And you may not be seeing it on the grand scale, from a large perspective, but when you look closely in certain pockets in London, when you look closely in certain pockets in places like Brixton, certain pockets in places like Hackney, you're beginning to see, even look closely online, you're beginning to see these online communities forming, and they're investing in one another. They're investing in one another. And in some of the communities I'm in alone, I'm seeing people kind of.
What kind of communities would these be?
So these are sometimes business communities. So I'm part of a group called 1010. I'm also part of a group called Direct to Consumer, which focuses on effectively supporting black companies, or any company actually that's into the e-commerce space. And in the group on Black Pound Day, we was all buying each other's products, we was all buying each other's services. So you're starting to see these things happen on a mini, kind of from a mini scale, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And I think with time, it will grow, and the groups will get bigger, and before you know it,
everything improves by repetition.
Yes.
So if people start to think that actually black made products are as good as other made products, this is going to aid that behavior to come along.
Definitely.
But right now, we certainly have some attitudes to adjust, haven't we?
Yeah.
What do you think are the biggest blockers to black pounds being recycled within our community?
It's trust.
Let me come to you, Nala.
It's trust. So the same way a white person isn't going to trust a black person isn't going to trust a black person. So it's actually the trust that we have to be able to see a kinship with each other, that's my brother, that's my sister. That's the mind shift that needs to take place.
That's devastating, and thank you so much for surfacing that. Trust. How do you overcome this kind of gulf of trust? What caused it in the first place?
Interesting. I think how we overcome it is just by doing the best we can with the businesses we have, because I think what you tend to see is the reason why black people may not trust other black people is because there's this perception that black businesses don't provide good customer service. Mm-hmm. Black businesses don't provide the best services out there. Mm-hmm. When really, if we supported one another, before you know it, as time goes on, we'll continue to get better and better and better and better. So I think it's going to take time, but it is something that can be done. And I think what caused it is just that perception, that subconscious bias that I'm not going to go to that business because they don't have good customer service. And they tend to be a black business, if that makes sense.
I understand completely. But then things like good customer service are often the result of having a bit of slush in your finances.
Yeah.
And if you're not getting the kind of financial support you need from the bank, you're constantly running from pillar to post, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and so on, and likely cutting corners. This is a reality.
Yeah.
And the poll we showed said that 73% of people from our communities did not trust to get their financing from a bank. Find me a solution. Give me a solution to that little conundrum.
I would love for there to be a solution. Well, I'm just learning today about the different ways to get capital into a business, because that's something that I have struggled with other business ventures. It's just not really knowing, not having the education to know where to find.
Can I ask
the
how long
finances from.
you've been in business? Because you're well known.
Yeah,
You're well followed on social media and so on.
How long have you been in business?
13 years.
13 years. Why is it taking you 13 years to find out the ABC
I
of
guess
capital
you
finance?
know what, it's
and so on?
exactly as you spoke about. It is working with the fight or flight mindset. It's actually, it really is that on the ground, at it, moving through.
Fighting fires every day.
Yes, exactly. And that's a part of our community psyche. That's in us. That trauma base is how we're running things. So it's not as slick, because when you don't have the buffer of finance to actually really work through things and have your plan in place to follow through properly, it is a bit like that. It is a bit haphazard. That's why when you walk into some restaurants, it feels a bit like that. But if there was the finance there, and that doesn't necessarily have to come from banks, but if people were more mindful to patronize these places, to actually be like, I'm going to support
Ease
them.
the cash flow.
And then you would have more cash in the
It would
business.
give them a better runway. Now, Demi, you're in the finance arena. What's the problem with the finance? What's the blocker with the finance, and what can be done about it?
The fear of rejection is a big issue.
Fear of rejection.
The fear of rejection. From a statistics standpoint, they say that Afro-Caribbeans are 38 to 44% more likely to not apply for finance from their bank than their white counterpart, who is, I think, 4% less likely. And that is based on the fact that they're scared they're going to get told no. So the fear of rejection is one of the big barriers we need to remove, because the banks are actually there to help, but I think it's a case that we just don't feel they're going to help, maybe because we see them as people that have never helped us, or we see them as companies that have never been there for us. But the banks are actually there to help. But what you're finding us doing is we're actually self-excluding ourselves.
Yeah,
we're saying, I'm not even going to try and apply because it's highly likely you're going to say no, because maybe my friend got told no, or maybe I saw my father get told no, when really that isn't always the case. And then I think another problem is awareness. So one of the things that we're doing at Lendo now is really trying to raise awareness about the financial institutions that are out there alongside ourselves to support these black communities. Because if we don't know who they are, then we won't know where to go. There's actually a whole number of financial institutions that have been set up specifically to serve black and Asian communities. Literally, that is their mandate. Their mandate is not to make a dividend for their shareholders. Their mandate is to serve those that have been rejected by the banks. Now, because we don't know of these, because we don't know of these institutions, we don't know where to go. And that's why, I'll be honest with you, that's why we probably have so many black customers.
Where do we go to find out this kind of information?
Well, I mean, firstly, Lendo, it's information we're providing now, but also it's out there. I mean, we just have to go and seek the education. I think some of the startup loan providers provide the information. So after you've had your first 2 years of trading and you can no longer get a startup loan, they often refer these community finance institutions. There are certain, education hubs, entrepreneurial education hubs that provide the information. But because we're not going out there to seek their education, we're not finding out about the solutions. So we need to plug into. Well, it's a tricky one, because if you don't know where to go, then you just don't know where to go.
Okay. Tell me, I mean, you're in the ideal position to answer this question. What about alliances of like-minded, let's say you're a fashion designer or you make fashion accessories and so on. Why don't you get together in a collective of 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of you, bigger product range, slightly more cash flow available to everybody. It's absolutely something which I'm sure would make your site worth traveling to more than if you were on your own. Is this something that you
exactly what I did with my sister? The company's called Hub and Culture. We had a high street shop in Peckham. We had 2 sites in Peckham for 2 years, and that was a consortium of designer makers like myself. There was 20 of us, and we all pitched in so that we could have a high street shop, a presence on the high street, and sold our various products. Everything was in there: clothing, skincare, moringa teas, and it was great. The thing was, the rent that landlords were expecting compared to the footfall on the high street. Peckham was reasonable because it's up and coming, but the rent was as if we were in Shoreditch like 5 years ago. Like, it was already overpriced for how much we were making. But because we was a collaborative team, it was feasible to be there because everybody was pitching in, so we didn't have staff costs. Those enterprises are happening more. Definitely since we had Hub and Culture, I know of 5 other people that got together with other makers and created those. That's why I'm saying it's not going to take long. because already the shift is happening. Like, this is from the ground up, it's organic, but we're going to get there. If the creative industries and the financial institutions got together, we could really take over the high street at this moment, because there are so many empty shops. As the high street is dying, we need to actually create our black pound on the high street now. Like, not allow our businesses to be hijacked by Asian businesses. They're making their millions off of our spending. We need to level out the playing field. Like, literally, I buy my hair from black people now, purposefully.
You've made the point perfectly, Nana. So, Demi, it looks like out of this crisis, we may have an opportunity.
Definitely.
Terrific.
I think what you're seeing happening is, because of what's happened over the past 3 months, we're beginning to mobilize, as Nana mentioned. And I think once you mobilize and then you begin to take count, so you begin to pull out the statistics, which things such as, the poll you pulled, 73% of those who came onto the poll said that they wouldn't apply to a bank for finance. Once you start bringing them statistics out and start showing them to banks, they then have to start making changes.
Pay attention and take action. Well, that's all we have time for on this edition of Your Voice. Thank you so much to my guests in this part, Nana Evans and Demi Ario, and of course to my earlier guests, Lydia Amwa and Noah Laguda. And thank you for watching. I'm Ted Kofi. Join us again next time, right here on Your Voice.
It seems extraordinary that there's nothing that the coronavirus doesn't touch.
All seen Black Lives Matter demonstrations.
Oppression is brought out.
It's unfortunate because I just feel like we're going down this road. We've been down this road before.
We've had